What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Welcome to my first project of 2024. Now in this project I'm going to aim to review every single Group 1 car within GT7 to see which ones you should go and pick and, well, which ones you should avoid. So what classes for these car reviews? Let's have a quick look and a quick overview. So the Group 1 category of car is obviously the highest class of race car in GT7, and it features a mixed bag of vehicles. You've got things like Group C's, more modern LMP machineries, even hypercars, and also the fantasy VGT cars. So with a total of 22 cars, a mixed bag of different vehicles from LMP machinery, this is going to be a massive, project that I'm taking on. Now, in terms of giving each and every single one a fair chance, I will be re-reviewing some of them that I perhaps have already ran in the past, giving them an open chance to be able to, exceed the expectations that were, put upon them after I first reviewed them. Now, obviously, the way I want to try and structure this is it'll be maybe a Group C historic review, then we'll go into a more modern machine, so maybe an LMP1 or maybe even the hypercar that is obviously in the game, and then I'll review a VGT, and we'll try and keep it in that order to keep it fair and keep it quite mixed up in terms of different vehicles that are getting shown. And then when it comes to the end of a review in all 22, I will give you my overall opinion, ranking them from best to worst. Now this should definitely be a project that goes on for a few months. Hopefully you guys will stick with me for the long term and we'll be able to get a final ranking on all of the Group 1 cars come the end. So let's get into it and start off with an absolute legend. To begin with, this is the Group C Jaguar XJR9. So the Jaguar XJR9 was essentially an evolution of the XJR8. Now there was multiple different versions of this vehicle. We had the one to compete in the FIA Group C. We obviously had one that went over to IMSA as well. And the one that we're seeing here is the kit for Le Mans. Obviously famously taking the Le Mans 24-hour win in 1988 for the first time in 31 years. This was a very successful machine and it sounds fantastic too. Have a listen to this. So here we go, let's talk about the success of the XJR9 and review it with inside of Gran Turismo 7. So as always, let's talk about the first deciding factor on whether you should pick this up. It's the price point. It has gone up recently in the Legends dealer to now 3 million credits, a lot more than I originally purchased mine for when the game first released. It's obviously a Group 1 machine with a PP rating of 863.66, 749 brake horsepower, 894 kilograms, naturally aspirated V12. This thing is an absolute roaring machine. It has perfect stats to back it up, and it is a ridiculously fast car. So before we talk about the car in terms of GT7, obviously I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown of the car's history. So like mentioned, this was an evolution of the XJR8. It was designed to compete between 1988 and 1989. Obviously it raced over in IMSA in a bit of a different form, but also raced over for the Group C Endurance Series as well. Obviously taking 6 wins out of 11 races, including that very famous 24-hour win in 1988. Now in terms of the team's championship, it did win that, and also you might have known of a little guy called Martin Brundle did take the drivers championship using this car. Now when this car actually won Le Mans, it was the first time that anyone but Porsche had won at Le Mans since 1980, so that is a very long streak to break. Obviously it was racing up against the Porsches itself during that. I did remember way back in the day watching a VHS tape all about this car winning the 1988 Le Mans. It was fantastic. I really can't remember the name of it, but I just remember watching it over and over again and just becoming absolutely obsessed with the XJR9. I really did love this car. Now in terms of obviously its success for Jaguar and Le Mans, this was the first time they'd won it since 1957, which, if you do the maths, is a 31-year gap since they last won. However, this car didn't really have the ending that it necessarily deserved. Whilst it did have a fantastic year of 1988, come 1989, this car became very, very outdated and was beat by many other machines, meaning that halfway through the season, Jaguar decided to pull out the XJR10. However, this car had certainly cemented itself in racing history with that very, very famous 1988 Le Mans 24-hour win, and obviously to go with it, the team's championship and the drivers championship as well. So a very successful race car. Sadly didn't quite get the end that it deserved. It didn't continue to be competitive in 1989 and did eventually become outdated and obviously eventually, like everything, replaced. So with the history of the vehicle done and out the way, let's talk about it in terms of Gran Turismo 7. I think a lot of you guys will be here to, kind of get my opinion on this car. Now, this is certainly one that needs no introduction. I think it's very much a lot of people's personal favourites, or right up there with the likes of the 787B and the Nissan that we also have. And, well, it's very much worthy of that place. I do feel like it gets forgotten about a lot more just because of how, stunning the Nissan is and how, I guess, famous the 787B is, especially in terms of GT7 with its major, fuel advantage and insanely kind on its tyres. And, well, the Jaguar doesn't necessarily compete that well in terms of those stats. I just think the sound and the speed alone make this a fantastic machine and definitely worthy of being kind of up there with some of the best Group 1 cars in the entire game. Whilst in terms of GT7, of course, it's outdated and it definitely feels that way at times. I'd say definitely in terms of the Group C machines, they do like to catch a bit of wind and, end up flying into a barrier. So you do end up being a bit more cautious. Their main advantage is always going to be top speed. Whilst the LMP1 machines and such have the hybrid boost on the acceleration, once that runs out, they are pretty much sitting ducks to the likes of the Jaguar XJR9 and the likes of the 787B. Now, this car, again, excels there. It's insanely fast in a straight line. It's definitely no slouch. In terms of its acceleration, it's also very, very quick. I would say, whilst yes, okay, it does feel a bit dated and can feel rather quite heavy at times, although obviously it's not, it definitely does perform very, very well pretty much at all tracks. Obviously, the main places you want to be using these sort of more Group C, Group 1 machinery is obviously at the high speed tracks, and, well, it definitely shows its best in terms of the Nordschleife when it's hitting them longer, more high speed straights without any twists or turns on there. This thing will blast way over 200 miles per hour without breaking a sweat. It's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, we've got that beautiful sound coming from the V12 in this thing. It's just an absolutely legendary car and really does cement itself in terms of one of the coolest cars inside of GT7. So we're going to head over to the lap time leaderboard to see how this thing performed. Whilst it did come in a relatively low 8th place, again, that's mainly because the downforce of these cars just isn't anything to match the more, I guess, up-to-date LMP1 machinery and such, so it really does kind of lose out there. However, the top speed is massive in comparison, so I'd say an 8th place is rather quite respectable considering we don't run BOP in these reviews. A 6-minute 1.200 sets the benchmark, with all of cars in that category being re-reviewed at some point down the line. So with my earliest memories of this car being in Gran Turismo 4 in terms of video games, watching a VHS on this car all the way back in the, I guess, early 2000s, late 90s, do I still love this car just as much after driving it in GT7 and, grinding money with it and such over the time? Yeah, absolutely. I honestly don't think I could have picked a cooler car to begin this Group 1 series of reviews with. I honestly think, although it's gone up in price, you should definitely pick this thing up. 3 million is a bargain. You can earn that back in no time using this thing. You've got the glorious engine note. You've got a seriously cool bit of Group C history right here in front of you. Definitely pick this one up when you can. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care, guys. Peace.